Just a few, as I promised you, I would talk more than 50 minutes, so I'll talk very fast now. These are some areas of very concrete collaboration. It's advocacy, it's practical work. We can discuss it a bit more once I run to the end here. But we have this Safety Schools campaign, Safety Hospitals, which is not an advocacy campaign. It is much more concrete than that. It's actually going to ask communities, individuals, politicians to sign up to how many schools they intend to make safer, for example. It's the translation of wooden language into language that is useful when it comes to practices. That's something that I think you have shown capably this report, which is very understandable. We are working a lot on economics of risk reduction. Why? My personal very strong sense that where we are today, what is really going to make a difference over the next 5 years on progress is economic and financial aspect. We really have to be able to give advice and show how resource allocation, wise investment, and how technically it's done. And also sort of the shifting of investment balance between paying for disasters at the implosion, so to say, rather than investing in prevention and cure. So this perspective. Secondly, I think moving from where we now are to working with ministers of planning, economics and high-level officials to engage in this opportunity of investment. We need to definitely invest in public awareness and education in the public much more consistently in the messages we have, both at local level and everywhere. And I think now if you just look at, remember the financing commitments from the platform and from the Kobe conference, I think now we have the opportunity to remind ourselves and everybody else when it comes to the reconstruction of Haiti. At least 10% of all the recovery investments and the reconstruction investments must be made disaster risk reduction investments. We have made an even bigger commitment from the EU. So we have, these are areas that are already in our work plan. It's this commitment now to sort of local level strengthening of cooperation and national investments. It's promote and work with change agents, as we call them here. We also had young people and children, parliamentarians. We've mobilized these groups. The parliamentarian work is going well. I think they work with young people and children seem to be picking up. So I think we have many different constituents shaking their particular part of the agenda. At the very bottom here, I want to draw your attention to water. Why? Because water doesn't have any clear center of gravity in the international system, barely in governments. It's a bit like disaster management, it can be anyway. But water, rather lack of water or too much water, as we can visibly see, but particularly lack of water is going to be one of the really most dangerous, destructive elements in all the work in the future. And it's already happening. Those governments that you can have conversations with, they are very sensitive. It's not the high-profile issue, essentially because I think it is already having such a serious impact on the economy of some fast-growing countries. And there is no international body that is singularly responsible for this. So this is something that we together, which we are also going to get much more attention on. We have 3 processes this year. This year is the Millennium Development Goals midterm review. And we are going to do our very best to be at the forefront of that, on how costly disasters are to the intention to reach the MDGs. It's a very simple message, but we'll be happy to share with you everything we do on that, and I hope you will share with us as well. We are doing the HFA midterm review. It's also our midterm review, and obviously we will try to also bring this development perspective there. But we also look forward to see you engage at national level, regional level, and international level on achieving that, and you have already made your contribution through the report, but also in other areas. And then, as I already mentioned, the agenda for the global platform, and more than the agenda, perhaps the outcome of the global platform 2011 could be one of the really... The HFA midterm review has already started moving a little bit, but we are basically setting up an advisory board where we are setting up a couple of extra studies, but we are mainly going to use already existing material. And we want to have three perspectives there. One retrospective, of course, what has changed since 2005. Looking at the next 5 years, where do we want to be in 2015? What should be the emphasis, the focus? And then, of course, we should think, does everything end in 2015, or how should we work beyond that? Is HFA good the way it is? Should it change a bit, or do we need other mechanisms? So all these three we would like to see here, some ideas about in the midterm review. The timetable will work during this year intensely from now to September, but it's important for you and for us that in the UN General Assembly there is an annual report from the Secretary General to the GA on risk reduction, and we would like in that to have some substantive preliminary elements. Why? Because otherwise we lose another year before we get our recommendations into that process. So we will press to have some substantive findings by early August. The report, of course, there will be in the report early 2011, and we hope that that will then serve as a basis for the platform work next year. So